Hello and welcome. My name is Evgeny Rusakov and you're watching TVP World, interview from Vilnius. Today we are discussing the recent dramatic events in Venezuela and their international repercussions. What do Maduro's arrest and Washington's actions mean for Latin America, global energy markets and international politics? And could these events be part of a much larger geopolitical game? To discuss this, I am joined by Alexandra Filippenko, American Studies expert, and Ieva Giedraitytė, political scientist from the Institute of International Relations and Political Science. Ladies, glad to see you in our studio. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
My first question would be to both of you, but first I'll start from Ieva. So Ieva, what was your reaction to what happened in Venezuela, and what's your take on this?
Well, I shouldn't have been shocked, bearing in mind the military buildup in the Caribbean previously, so something like that was foreseen. But I was shocked that night. I was like, okay, it's really happening. And since that day and since the US press conference, I'm apprehensive, mildly hopeful, and yet very much so worried about how all the process is happening.
Okay, Alexandra, what about you?
Well, I totally agree. Shocked and not shocked at the same time. But the first thought was the American security strategy, national security strategy is working. The White House is serious about its national security strategy, saying that this is our hemisphere. This is the American hemisphere, and the United States are planning to act on it. It's not just a mere some document that was published in December. They're very serious about it.
Okay, so again, coming back to Ieva, so it looks like not everyone in Venezuela is happy with what's happening and not everyone is happy with Maduro's arrest. So what's the situation like right now in Venezuela and how will it evolve in the nearest future? What do you think?
Well, it's difficult to say how people in Venezuela feel about that, because on the one hand, there doesn't seem to be a huge rupture in the military and the political elites. So Delcy Rodriguez, the current president, she is surrounded by the military people. She's accompanied by them, Vladimir Padrino, Diosdado Cabello. So they seem to be together on board. And at the same time, there is a repression, so people are not celebrating in the streets. But it's really early to say what's going to happen, because we have to see how long the government will walk the tightrope between agreeing what the US wants and not angering the bases that reject the US interventionism.
Okay, so you've mentioned those two names, Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino and Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello. Correct me if I'm wrong. So how do you think current Venezuela's leader, Delcy Rodriguez, how is she dealing with those two?
Well, that's the thing. We do not know. It's a little bit a black box. So for now, we do not see like open resistance. We see that Delcy Rodriguez towards Venezuela, she has this more military discourse, while her discourse towards outside is much more nicer and cooperation-oriented. So for now, we do not know, is there actually an agreement between the government and US government and Venezuelan current government? Are there ruptures in the elites? We really need to see a little bit more what the US will require. And once the government starts doing that, what will happen then?
Okay, but as far as I've read, those two are both in drugs smuggling. Is that so?
I mean, look, there are two things. Venezuela was not invaded for drug smuggling, and that's the whole separate narrative. Now, Venezuelan government for sure gets money from drug smuggling. And it's not only Diosdado Cabello or even Delcy Rodriguez, it's most likely much more, broader scale of involvement into that. But given that the US intervention is not about that, I don't think that this is the reason why they are particularly worried.
Okay. And here's my question to Alexandra about the goals of the whole operation. So when it comes to them, one immediately recalls that Venezuela has the largest oil reserves on the planet. And it looks like Trump himself is very optimistic about that. But how about those US business representatives that are skeptical about his idea of restoring Venezuela's oil industry, calling the country unattractive for investment in its current state?
Yes, we must say that for President Trump, he's very sure. He says that everyone wants to invest into Venezuela. Actually, all representatives of the oil industry, all biggest companies, they're calling him every other second and asking when can they start working in Venezuela. But it doesn't seem to be real because it is a tough, the situation with the infrastructure is extremely difficult. The infrastructure was built in the 60s and the 70s, and it's very, you need at least 18 months to rebuild it. You need billions of dollars of investment to start actually getting oil from Venezuela at those levels that will bring some revenue. So President Trump seems to be playing a political card. So this is more of a political situation
Is he getting prepared for the next midterm elections?
In a way, he is, because he has the support of this idea of bringing Maduro into the United States, because the Americans don't know much about what is happening in Venezuela. They only know that it's not a democratic state and that Maduro and Maduro regime is extremely dangerous. For example, about Diosdado Cabello, nothing is known about him in the United States, apart from the fact that in 2017, the Department of Homeland Security issued a report that he wants to assassinate Senator from Florida. That senator's name is Marco Rubio, State Secretary, current State Secretary.
Could that be Marco Rubio's revenge?
That's one of the ideas. That is one of the things that Nicolas Maduro has been saying himself.
Here's the question then. How do Democrats feel about this whole thing?
They are, in general, they are saying that it was wrong to bring Maduro to the United States, although they are between a rock and a hard place, because Spanish-speaking Americans generally vote for the Democratic Party, generally. And Spanish-speaking Americans, Latinos that are now citizens of the United States that can vote in the United States, they do not support Nicolas Maduro at all, and they support the idea of bringing Nicolas Maduro to court, even though he's coming to court not for repressing Venezuelans, but they are happy to see him there. So the Democrats they might lose the electorate, they might lose the Latino community, and they're really worried about it. So they are very cautious about what they're saying about the trial.
I have a question for both of you. So after the operation in Venezuela, Trump started talking about Cuba, Mexico, Colombia and Greenland. Ieva, first question to you. What was Colombia's and Cuba's and Mexico's reaction to Trump's talks?
Well, I mean, the countries are really worried, but I think we need to separate them because the danger, to say so, and the response was slightly different. So I think Cuba is really likely next, one or another way. Cuba will have huge problems without Venezuelan oil, and a little bit agreeing with what has been said with the midterm elections. If Cuba falls, for Trump's administration, that's a huge bonus for the midterm elections. So Cuba, obviously, you know, they issued statements supporting Venezuela, et cetera, but obviously they are worried. Colombian President Petro spoke to Donald Trump. They had a phone call. They were shouting on each other on Twitter previously, but then they had a phone call, and there seems that all the worries are a little bit calmed down. There will be a meeting between them. And because there will be elections in Venezuela, and whoever comes to the power, neither the U.S. wants to support Petro candidate, nor they want to seem like intervening and to arrange afterwards. As for Mexico, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, she is really between the rock and the hard place because they're hugely dependent on the U.S. Trump's rhetoric is highly incendiary, while Claudia Sheinbaum tries to keep the calm and speak, you know, that nothing will happen. So we are not foreseeing that something like Maduro will happen for Mexico, but the U.S. is getting more and more aggressive about bombing cartels in Mexican territory, et cetera, and that's something Mexican government would like to avoid. So there are three different scenarios, slightly three different reactions.
Alexandra, coming back to Trump's talks about Cuba, Mexico, and the rest, in essence, the U.S. President, Donald Trump, justifies the right of the strong with his words and with his actions. So how does American society and the establishment view this?
Well, Donald Trump is talking about the Don Roe doctrine. The Don Roe doctrine is Donald Trump is demanding loyalty from Latin American states. It has nothing to do with Europe, not that much to do with Europe, but he wants to see loyalty from the Latin American states. And for the Americans themselves, they realize that, yes, it is true what the president is saying, that Latin America has been somewhere at the back of government Americans' minds for years and years, while these states have been not invaded by China, but China has been building up their possibilities in Latin America especially for past 10 years. You could see the presence of China and of Chinese business in Latin America. So the Americans in general, they support the idea of really being present in the on the American continent and not seeing China that much and giving less attention to Europe, let's say.
So do you want to say that China, in fact, is the biggest U.S. concern in Latin America?
I would say so, and that this is what President Trump is saying, what Marco Rubio is saying, that they don't want to see Chinese or Russian or Iranians running around Venezuela. That was their that was the quote. So I think
what would you
China,
say to that?
I think there are two things there. So China, for sure. I think Donald Trump is feeling that China is getting more powerful and he feels like, oh my God, not in my backyard. There's a one thing to that. But I also believe that for parts of Trump's administration, the culture war aspect is very important. It's about not getting governments that are searching for autonomy, tend to be left-wing governments, but not obligatory. So we will not let the governments that we do not consider loyal to the power. So I think it's China plus a little bit broader internal culture wars agenda.
Again, Ieva, question to you. So literally Donald Trump says that this is our hemisphere, this is our place of interest. How does the whole continent of South America react to this?
There is a difference a little bit based on the political allegiances. So there are countries like Argentina, whose president just got a huge loan from the US not to lose the elections. So they're celebrating that. It's ideologically very close. There are countries like Brazil or Colombia or even Mexico, though Mexico do not speak out loud for the reasons mentioned, that are much more critical to that. But in general, Latin America, it brings out historical references of the US interventionism, and they were not extremely popular. So I heard that even among some of my friends, Venezuelan friends, they said like, we're happy to see Maduro go. We just do not want to become colony of gringos again.
Okay, and here we are, three gringos discussing all what's happening there. Okay, again, question to both of you. So after the events in Venezuela, some people started talking about some kind of a deal between Putin and Trump that took place in Alaska. The main thing about that deal was like Trump takes Venezuela and Putin takes Ukraine. So what's your take on this? Is it just, I don't know, conspiracy theory? Let's start from you, Alexandra.
Well, I'm highly skeptical regarding that because Putin is not the one to, let's say, talk about it or discuss the hemispheres. It's the American hemisphere, full stop. And I think that we should look at what Pete Hegseth, the head of the Pentagon, the Minister of War, has said during a press conference after the extraction of Nicolas Maduro. What about those Russian weaponry? Oh, how did that work for you?
Oh, that didn't work
That didn't work at all. So they're basically laughing about Russia. They're laughing about the possibilities of Russian military in that hemisphere. So I think I'm highly skeptical that President Trump even had in his mind the idea of talking to Putin about that.
How about you, Ieva?
Initially, I would agree with that. I don't think that the U.S. would need a permission of Russia to do anything. Just to say that the idea or the proposal like that was first time mentioned by Fiona Hill, who actually was in Russia. She was a Trump's official in Russia in 2019. So she said that she received this offer from Russian officials, sort of. So it's publicly stated in the Congress, I think in her testimonies in Congress. So maybe Russians would suggest that. I just really do not see that for all the reasons that Alexandra mentioned, that the US would really, call and discuss that a lot. I mean, it aligns with the vision of Donald Trump's of the world. Like he believes that Russia has a claim about the Ukraine, et cetera, but I don't really see it as being a negotiation piece in the previous meeting in Alaska.
Well, I guess this is what we will leave for our next conversations and our next meetings. Alexandra, Ieva, thank you both for coming, for joining us today, and I really hope to see, discussing this topic, this very interesting topic, once again in our studio.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And I would like to remind our viewers that our guest for today was Alexandra Filippenko, American Studies expert, and Ieva Giedraitytė, political scientist from the Institute of International Relations and Political Science. You're watching TVP World. Stay with us.